So I've been promising all through this chapter that there's something really cool about working with these Bezier curves and working with your traditional drawing and painting tools. And I'm going to show that to you now. First off, let me just point out that I'm using the pen tool and I've got it set to stroke with no fill. And I'm just going to go ahead and begin to draw out a curve. Doesn't have to be anything spectacular, but I just want some variation to show you how useful this is. So I'll do something like that, and then maybe I'll do something like this. And the reason why is I want to show you something that can happen here on these parts where things get kind of close to one another. Now that I've done that, let me go ahead and just click on my canvas, or I can make a new layer, doesn't matter, and grab my brush tool. And I'm going to grab from the pastel category my worn old pastel, and from the color set libraries, just a nice color, something like that magenta color right there. All right, so the idea being is that now that we've created our curve as our guide, we can now snap to that curve. And the way that we do that is we click this Align to Path option on the brush. And once we click that, we're now able to just paint. And as we're painting, it will snap. And if I go off that track, it will just stop. It won't let me keep going because it basically knows when I've gotten too far away from the track and I'm going off course. So this way, you can make sure that the curves that you're making are very, very clean and very natural. Now, you can stack up multiple colors. So I'm just going to build up some painterly effects on here. Go ahead and get some yellow. There we go. The yellow. And something like so. And you can see I'm just kind of scrubbing it in. And I'm getting, some painterly type effects going. But at the same time, it's snapping to that curve and it's not letting me off that track. And that can be really useful. Now, if I turn off that shape, you can see what I mean. I can go to town, I can paint whichever way I want with as many colors, and it will just give me that nice, clean curve that would be very, very difficult to get. And especially by overlaying this many colors and still staying on that track. That's a really nice thing. Now, you may notice up here, and I'll just go ahead and zoom in right on them so that you can see them, that right here we get kind of this little hiccup. And the reason why we're getting that hiccup, and let me just go ahead and zoom out a few times, is because this curve is a little bit close. See how these edges are kind of close to one another? And you also see it up here to a certain degree. There's a little hiccup there. And again, it's because these corners are fairly close to each other. So how do we control that? How do we make that not happen? Well, what we do is we go up to our Edit, Preferences menu, General. And in General, you'll find that we have Align Brush to Path Tolerance 20 pixels. So we could set that for something lower, like say 10 pixels. And what will happen is that it will only allow us to snap if our brush is within 10 pixels of that, and that will minimize those types of effects. The other option here that you might want to turn on is to paint hidden shapes. And this will allow you to turn off that shape. So I'll just go ahead and turn that on right now, hit OK. And then I'll just go ahead and do something like, say, grab a green. And now that I'm on that brush and I've got a green, let me just go ahead and start painting. And first off, you'll notice that that hiccup doesn't happen. And the reason why is because now we've got that tolerance a lot tighter. But the other thing that you might notice is that if we turn off that shape so that we can't see it, we can still snap to it. We can still paint just as if we were painting with that shape turned on. And this can be useful because sometimes you want to be able to see what you're doing color-wise or texture-wise, and you don't want to have that shape get in the way. So obviously, this can be very, very valuable when you're working. Now, one of the things that I will point out to you is that there are some other preferences. So if we go to Edit, Preferences, and we go to Shapes, there are some preferences that you can set here so that whenever you're drawing, it will either always fill or always stroke. On close, it will always fill or always stroke. You can choose to use big handles, which I usually turn on. And you can also change the color. So, for instance, if I come back over here and hit Cancel, like so, you can see that our active point here is red, and that line is blue, and the handle is blue as well. Well, let's say that we want to change that. So let's go to Preferences and go to Shapes. And then let's change the wing color to something like, say, a really obtrusive green, something that'll be really easy to see. So now that when we do that, and we click here, now you see that the handles are very clearly different from the line itself. So this can be really useful sometimes to customize it to fit if you're working on a particular painting and say, that blue or that red just doesn't stand out enough for you to be able to see it. Well, now you can change it to whatever you want it to be.